Hi, everybody. We want to welcome in our our guest today, Thom Powers, who it was pointed out during before we opened it up that this is his third appearance as a special guest for us, and he is to our Friday Face to Faces what Alec Baldwin is to hosting Saturday Night Live. And we happily welcome him back. We were also supposed to be welcoming Lauren Clark, the associate programmer at TIFF. She is speaking at a conference in Kazakhstan, and we were very hopeful that her Wi-Fi would be working, but it turns out no. So we are, unfortunately, Thom will have to fill both roles as head programmer and associate programmer. So welcome, Thom.
Thank you.
We are talking this time about, curation centered around TIFF itself, which is obviously one of the biggest, most prestigious film festivals in the world. You are in your 20th year programming there, or 21st?
21st year, so in 2006.
Okay. So, we want to cover, we're probably like two major things. One is, the curation process, how you went about picking the films that you did, how you work together as a team and balance things out, your programming out. And then, something that you mentioned you'd like to speak about, which is how the slate of films there reflects, the state of the documentary landscape, both, artistically and business-wise. So let's begin. Oh, by the way, and we will, of course, as usual, leave the last half hour for you folks to ask your questions. And it's really hard for us to check the chat, and as we're going along. So try and save your questions for that and use the raised hand function. And I will call on people in the order that I see the raised hands. It's a very civil process. So let's begin by talking about the slate, Thom. There are 21 films from 20 countries. There were 6 from the US, 7 from Canada, two others that were co-productions involving US filmmakers. But a big international scope to it. Interestingly, 2/3 were directed by women. But there are other documentaries sprinkled in other sections. And are you and your team are you basically programming those as well as the,
Yeah, so let me give you the kind of big picture of the TIFF programming team. There's about 20 programmers. Many of them have regional specialties. Diana Cadavid oversees Latin America. Dorota Leck oversees Eastern Europe and other European territories. Giovanna Folvi oversees Asia, and so on. Few of us have kind of genre specialties. Peter Kaplowski oversees our Midnight Madness section. Andrea Picard and Jesse Cummings handle wavelengths for more experimental cinema. Um, Cameron Bailey, the CEO of TIFF, oversees the gala section. Those are the films that are red carpet driven experiences that take place in our largest venue, Roy Thompson Hall. So we're all speaking together. And well, the other component to that, I should say, is um, being a festival in Canada, we have 2 Canadian programmers who are specifically devoted to that region, Jason Anderson and Kelly Boutsalis. Um, all of us are, speaking together. Diana Cadavid covering Latin America. She's noticing a documentary there of something she's seen on her travels. She'll let me know. But at the same time, I'm also making my own visits and touching base with stakeholders in that territory. So, often I'm letting her know about things that I've heard of. Uh, and I do think that it is one of the strengths of TIFF as a festival that we do have such a wide number of programmers, each with different specialties. Um, Over the course of the year, we're putting our feet on the ground of every filmmaking continent, um, trying to be attuned to what's happening in those communities. Um, this year, outside of the TIFF doc section, you'll also find nonfiction films in the wavelengths experimental section. In the gala section, we have the film Always La Lisa about the singer from Blackpink, a film directed by Soo Kim, who was at TIFF a few years ago with her film Last of the Sea Women. There's a terrific film close to my heart called Pretenders about the band led by Chrissy Hind, and Chrissy Hind will be there for the gala screening. That's some of what goes in that section. Maybe I'll pause there because I could go on into the minutia of it, but I've
Well,
maybe already overserved you.
we will get into the minutia, don't you worry. That's what we're all here for. Does that mean because you have galas and special presentations, does that kind of allow you in the TIFF doc section to be a little bit more pure about what you select? In other words, less pressure to maybe program a film from a big streamer like Netflix, who might put some pressure on to have one of their film show, or some big documentary with some huge star, so you can be,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. I mean, listen, I could fill a slate of 21 films with just music documentaries. There are that many out there. And I could fill a slate of 21 films with, just first time directors, or, just very heavy human rights topics. Because God knows, those films exist. And I do think of the programming role as one of finding the balance of of showing what the spectrum is of documentary filmmaking happening today, which can include um, uh, insights into celebrity lives, and also can include looks at lives that are totally anonymous. I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive.
Well, that kind of begs the question, is it advantageous for a filmmaker to submit early in the submission process to you so that they are not excluded because they've already got, like, say, you already have a personal documentary, or you already have a music documentary, or
Well, I think you should submit your film when it is in its best possible state. I don't think there's any advantage to, rushing us a cut in April that you feel confident is going to be better in May. Um, but if you've got your, final cut picture lock version that you feel totally like this is the fulfillment of my vision, and you've got that in April. Yeah, by all means, send it in early. Doesn't you know? doesn't even necessarily mean that we're going to get to it early, because there's always a management of several things going on. But listen, having I think the bigger question here is like, as filmmakers, and I spent 10 years as a filmmaker, so I've been on that side of it. Um, how can you rack away at any of the mystery of this process that often feels frustrating, let's say that, to be waiting for, you've made the film, you've put in all this work, sometimes several years of work, and now you want to get it to an audience, and you have to go through this filter of a festival process, like waiting for someone to see what you see in your film and be able to champion it. And at the same time, you're in this kind of invisible competition against the hundreds of other filmmakers that are trying to do the same thing. So, is there anything that you can do to um, kind of take back a little bit more control for yourself? Um, I think that uh, you know it doesn't hurt, trying to send some communication to a programmer. You don't might not always get an answer, but if you, um, you know, one of the situations that can come up is you're trying to figure out where to hold your world premiere, and maybe you're holding out because you'd like your fantasy would be to have a world premiere at one of the top festivals, a TIFF or a Sundance or um, Berlin, whatever. And, and yet maybe you've got some interest from, another festival, and you feel this bind, like, should I wait for this bigger festival, or should I, go with someone that's already showing me some love? I think that is a fine time to, send an email out to the programming team and say, hey, listen, I would really love to show at TIFF, but we do have an offer for a festival in June, and I don't always have the bandwidth to answer those emails. We did have 900 documentary submissions this year, so if all 900 people were asking me a question, I wouldn't be able to do my job in watching their films. But to the best of my ability, like, if someone is asking me a question in good faith, um, I can try to expedite an answer. And the answer might be, I'm sorry, I won't know until, X date. And I wish I could make it faster, but I can't. And at least that's something to work with. But I think that kind of communication, I think when in the 12 years that I was a programmer at Doc NYC, it was very meaningful for me to hear from a filmmaker if they would say, hey, we've got this special guest who, will come out to a screening and, drive an audience and make this a special event. I mean, those things aren't, I'm not going to show a film that I really don't believe in simply because it's got a special guest. But if there's a film, if I'm kind of if I've got 10 films that I like and I've got one slot, and one person is telling me, hey, we're going to do everything we can to make this a special event, I'm certainly going to take that into consideration.
Yeah. Well, you did, you answered one of my questions, how many submissions you got. So 900 submissions. This is just for the TIFF doc section, I assume.
Correct. Yes, that's
20,
feature length docs. Does not include shorts. Does not include fiction.
right, 21 films selected. So quick math tells me about 45 to 1 odds.
Your
Not
math
great,
is better than mine. Yeah.
not great odds, although you just told us how you can reduce the odds a little bit by, telling you Bruce Springsteen will show up and introduce my film and maybe play a song after. So tell us, let's go through the process of, when when do submissions, the festival begins shortly after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Submissions open in April?
March, I think,
March.
and maybe in years when we're ahead of time, in late February. But yeah,
Okay, so I have just submitted my film early April. Take us through the chain of like who sees it first?
yeah,
How do they rate it? Do they grade it? What, how many programmers actually see it? And
yeah.
the big question a lot of filmmakers are sort of frustrated about when they kind of look and check their Vimeo link to see if it's actually watched. A big complaint is that festivals programmers sometimes barely even watch it or turn it off after a short period of time. So reassure us that it's seen all the way through as well.
Yeah, well, that is 100% true. I mean, sometimes there are people, there are multiple eyes being put on a film, and if the first viewer, um, if it's a pre-screener as opposed to me or my colleague Lauren, who's an associate producer, the associate programmer, pre-screener's job is to watch the film all the way through and to make a kind of detailed assessment for me why they think I should watch it or why they think that it's not right for TIFF. And part they have to answer a certain set of questions. And one of the questions is how does this film end? So that in order to answer the question, they better watch it till the end.
Sorry to interrupt
Um,
for a second, Tom. How many pre-screeners are there altogether, and how do you decide which pre-screener to see which film?
Yeah, there's, I think for docs this year, we had two main pre-screeners, people who have been doing this for a number of years. So I trust their taste. They understand what we're looking for. They write good notes. They're, extremely thoughtful. And then sometimes we'll pull in other people from the pre-screening team, perhaps if it's a film from Asia, we'll pull in someone on our pre-screening team who has a deeper range of experience from that territory. But it's there's two or three main docs people, and then I would say of the 900 films that come in, there are probably 200 of those films that are coming from filmmakers I have a prior relationship with, or producers I have a prior relationship with, or first time filmmaker that came strongly recommended by when I never heard 10 years ago. I never heard of Joshua Oppenheimer, but Errol Morris sent me a note saying you should really look at this film, The Act of Killing. So when I get uh, a outside recommendation like that, then the film's not going through a pre-screener. I'll just watch it first, or sometimes my colleague Lauren will watch it first. We're the pre-screeners are kind of used as a because it would be physically impossible for me to watch 900 films. The 700 or so films that are coming through that we don't know, that we know nothing about. They're giving a look to see if it feels worth our process.
So if it gets, low grades, as it were,
Yeah.
that's kind of where it dies. It won't go any
Uh,
further.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, usually as part of the process, I will uh, look through. Lauren and I will kind of scan through the lower graded films to see if there's anything that got missed. See if is there a filmmaker that we've heard of that slipped through that net. Um, you know, Sometimes we'll be kind of thinking about a specific region. So let me use Ukraine as an example. I think we got, more than 20 submissions this year that uh, deal in some capacity with Russia's war in Ukraine. Uh, and so at some point in our process, as we're like trying to figure out um, you know, and this has been true the last several years, or as long as that conflict has been going on, we'll take a moment to ask ourselves, well, what is the range of stuff that we've seen, and even films that might have been scored a one. Our numbering process is 1 through 5, five being the highest, one being the lowest. So even films scored a one, we'll just kind of double check and see was there something here that was missed, but uh, there's not that. I mean, I can't really think of times that I've gone back and said, oh my gosh, this film was scored a one, and we should program it. Um, uh, because the people who are doing that pre-screening know what they're doing.
Yeah. So of those 700 that were pre-screened, how many of those do you think made their way to you and Lauren?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't have that exact number. Um, uh, I think that there's probably a 100 or more films that get graded a three that get passed up. So the process would be if a common process is a pre-screener watches a film and says, like, I'm not sure about that, there's something here, I'm not sure, but someone else should take a look. Say we're going to grade this film a 3 or 3.5. Then that would go to Lauren, who's been doing this longer with me, and has a sense of what we're selecting, which the pre-screeners don't necessarily have. um, and so Lauren would give it that second pair of eyes, and um, and she sometimes has a better sense, like, oh, I understand why pre-screener pushed this up, but we actually have another film that's similar to this and that we think is a stronger film, so we're gonna let that one go. Um, and if she thinks, well, this is actually, quite a strong film, um, she'll pass it up to me.
So how many ultimately did you wind up uh, viewing yourself and how, as ballpark?
Well, I mean, I know precise. I wrote some around 200 personal um, uh, notes, saying that we had to pass on a film. Um, So I watched those 200 films, plus the 21 that we programmed, and a few more. Um, so yeah, and I mean, I, somewhere between 200 and 300 films I watched.
So that's so how do you do you are there certain days you allot for screening and then see a bunch in that day? Do you spread them out daily? What's your daily diet
I wish that I could say that in 21 years I've made it that programmatic, um, but it I kind of give myself more like, week long quotas, like, this week I better get through a certain number of films or I'll be in trouble. But there's a lot that's reactive to the process. One of my colleagues might send me a film and say, "Hey, this came from someone we have a relationship with, and we need to give them a quick response." TIFF is in a little bit of a different position than, say, Sundance, compared to the other major North American festival, um, because we're in this corridor that also has Locarno and Venice and Telluride. Um, all of those four festivals are, making decisions at the same time, and all of us are looking to present a unique slate of films. So, some of that process is needing to respond quickly to a film because I want to give them a direct answer about whether it could work for us or whether they should be focused on accepting other options.
Uh, what format do you generally watch the films on? A big screen TV,
I usually
a
watch on
desktop,
yeah, I watch on a big screen TV.
uh, even when you're traveling?
Well, when I don't travel that much during my like peak viewing period. So listen, have I ever watched a film on my laptop because someone sent me a link and said,
Or your
put,
phone, Tom?
the phone is where I draw the line. I really don't do the phone. I mean, it's not. Um, yeah, that's I draw the line there. But have I, been in May? I was in Poland at the wonderful Millennium Docs Against Gravity Festival, and I think someone sent me a link and said, we really need an answer soon because we have to make other decisions. And yeah, in that case, I'll watch a film on a laptop. And you know what? Like I'll. A lot of films have gotten programmed off of me watching them on a laptop. It really does, even films that are, have gorgeous cinematography. Like if a film is working, it's going to work on the screen. Sometimes people will, rent out my local movie theater in Montclair because they really want me to watch the film on the big screen. And I have to say, it's never like increased the chances that I'm going to program that film.
Oh, interesting you say that because I'm an Academy member, and I feel like there's a big advantage to the films where I get,
Hmm.
screening invitation to see it with an audience in a theater. For one thing, the pacing. I'll give in to a slower pacing when there's no exit, as opposed
Yeah,
to, a laptop where you can stop and start and check emails or get
yeah.
notifications and stuff. So, I guess
I think I think I'm attuned. When we watch a film, we're all watching it through a different filter. Like when you watch as an Academy member, you're watching it through the filter of like, do I think this is one of the, best films of the year, in my opinion, that I want to move forward into Oscar nominations? When I'm watching a film, I'm asking like, does this work for TIFF? And that can be on any number of levels. Like, is this a first time filmmaker, for whom this is going to be a discovery, and I see this person having a long career. Like I want that kind of film. Is this cover a subject matter that I think people are going to be super interested in, and I haven't seen anything else like it. Is this a film that totally takes me by surprise because I've watched thousands of documentaries and I kind of have a sense of my filter, like, oh, I've seen a version of that. I've seen a version of that personal story. I've seen a version of this human rights story. I've seen a version of this biography. And, and when I receive a film that takes me totally by surprise. That doesn't matter whether I'm watching it on a laptop or on an IMAX screen. Like I'm aware of it.
Yeah. Um, do you have any, personal favorite types of documentaries? You just mentioned you love discovering new
Hmm.
voices and things, but is there a type of documentary that you,
I like personal films. I like essay films. This year at TIFF we have a film called Tehran Under the Skin by Afsana Salari, who I previously she produced a film from Iran that we had at the festival a couple of years ago called A Sister's Tale. And in Tehran Under the Skin, she is uh, embedding herself in the offices of two plastic surgeons in Tehran. Many people may know that Tehran is a kind of epicenter of plastic surgery. It's a very uh, 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 big thing there. And through the conversations that she's having with the clients who are coming from plastic surgery, she's exploring like a kind of wider meditation about Iran at this time, where you've got on one hand, the force um, of hijab law, mandatory hijab laws. And then you've got the women life freedom movement that is, seeking greater bodily autonomy and the the space of a plastic surgeon's office becomes a way to reflect on these things. So I do, enjoy a personal voice there, but I also enjoy like a great investigative documentary, and I enjoy, I think we have a terrific archival driven documentary this year in Edward Said, Between Worlds, and there's a fantastic love story film in Bleeding Hearts about the couple in the band Chaparral that kind of plays out like a season of TV's Nashville. Um, I think the joy to this job is that you get to enter, all kinds of different worlds um, and if I watch 21 essay films, um, I would definitely be craving something else. And so what I'm trying to do is give you that buffet of many different options.
yeah. Um, and I don't want to put you on the spot by naming a couple of personal favorites, but do you have any personal favorites?
Yeah, I never mind. I don't know why people feel so sheepish about naming personal favorites. Like people always, say like, well, you can't have a favorite child. Like I know my mom has a favorite child, and it's my youngest brother, and like, well, like why do we need to, kid ourselves about that? Um, I mean, Edward Said Between Worlds is definitely a film that I think is, important and of this moment. The film that we selected as the opening night of TIFF Docs, Rapinoe, about the soccer player Megan Rapinoe. This film is extra special to me because it's directed by Rebecca Hunt, and we showed her first film, Beba, 5 years ago. Beba is a film that I often invoke as one that came to me. I knew nothing about the director. I was it was probably like the 10th film that I was watching that day. I was really just putting it in to watch with the intention that I would have one fewer films to watch the next day. And within 5 minutes of watching, like that film just had captured me. And it's a Beta is a personal um, story. It's a first person story, kind of which I've seen a number of, but there was some special quality to about it that pulled me in. So now to be able to show Rebecca's second film, Rapino, where she's taking many of the skills she has at diving deep into family history, and only now applying it to a major figure in the public eye, is really sets it apart from other sports figure documentaries. Rapino, Edward Said, Between Worlds, just to name a couple.
You said something really interesting that the film captured you within 5 minutes. I mean, in terms of advice to filmmakers out there, is there, what is it about openings and exposition that tend to capture someone like yourself, as opposed to like,
Yeah.
making you go like, well, when will it get to the point?
That's a great question. Like many years ago, like maybe um, over 30 years ago, I saw Kurt Vonnegut speak, and he said to the auditorium, like, how many people here are writing novels? Um, and a bunch of hands went up, and he said, here's my advice: throw away the first two pages. Uh, and I'm not sure what he meant by that, but my interpretation of that, and something I feel often in films, is people kind of like will have too much buildup or too much um, kind of indulgence. And if you throw away the first, 2 pages, or, you know, let's say in documentary form, the first minute, then you throw us into the action. If we um, if we enter a film feeling like, what's going on? Like, who are these people? If you make me active, like trying to um, catch up to the action, uh, that is a better way to grab me than if I'm spending the first 2 minutes feeling like, okay, let's get to the point. Like, what is this about? Um, so
Maybe
yeah,
drop the mood music,
yeah. I mean,
music shots.
uh, another thing that I'm really against um, is films that start with like a heavy text card. Um, I just feel like I did not come to read. I came to watch a movie, and I appreciate that. Usually heavy text cards, like there's just something that you feel you need to convey, or you want the viewer to understand some facts before they get into this. But I just hold it for a beat, like draw me in with some imagery, or like make me care about a character, make me form the question in my own head, like, well, whatever that text card is telling me, how long a war has gone on, how many casualties there have been, like, get me uh, um, uh, into wanting to know this information before you're giving me the information.
Yeah, you bring to mind Billy Wilder's advice: never have a character come through the door when they can come through the window.
Right, sure. In documentary, we don't, always get that choice.
Right.
But
Up to
uh,
get to the action. Get to the
yes.
um, last question about curation. And Sheila, I noticed your hands up. Let's wait. I'll give a signal for when hands can go up. Shortly before the last half hour, which is coming soon. Can you give me a couple of examples of well, what don't filmmakers understand about the curation process that
Hmm.
drives you a little bit bonkers?
Um, I mean, I don't know if it drives me bonkers. I think that I think it's important to appreciate that there are a lot of film festivals out there, and pinning all your hopes on one is not that good for your mental health. Let me put it that way. Um, and um, um, and there are, I mean, I'll often have filmmakers who write to me and tell me why they think uh, this festival, whether I'm programming Toronto or Doc NYC or somewhere else, why this festival is the best for their film. Um, but, I read those emails. I take them into consideration, and I appreciate the you know I appreciate that filmmakers need to be strong advocates of their film because no one else is going to do that for them. Um, it's probably harder for me to explain back, that um, that as a festival, we have our own needs, um, need to del deliver a range of work to an audience. So, often if you're sending me a film and I've got one that's, very close to it, and, for whatever reason, I feel more strongly about one, not the other, doesn't mean that you don't have a very, compelling film worthy of an audience. It just means I don't have a place for it in my festival. So, um, uh, I think that it's, you know, I think as much about the films as I think about the audience. And a question for me is, um, do I know how to bring this film to an audience? And in the um, in the form of TIFF, one of the things that we have a unique opportunity to do is to put films forward to the large contingent of industry who are coming to the festival. And I think this year that contingent will even rise because we have the new market at TIFF. So, I'm certainly looking for films that I feel, have a chance um, to get picked up for distribution. It doesn't have to be giant streamer distribution. Doesn't even have to be North American distribution. Film that we showed a couple of years ago, The Blue Road, the Ed O'Brien story by Irish filmmaker Sinead O'Shea. Um, it still hasn't gotten a North American distributor, although I think it may soon. But it played in the UK and Ireland, and was the second biggest documentary theatrical release in that territory. So. there, so the opportunities to, take a film and help launch it are always exciting to me. That doesn't have to be a criteria for every single film. There are, some films that I show that I feel like, well, I wish there was a market for this. There isn't, but here's my chance to champion it anyways.
Yeah. You mentioned that Toronto has a new market. Is it for documentary or is it for?
It's for everything. So this is its first year. It's quite a major undertaking with market screenings, expanded conversations. There's a lot of investment to bring industry, more industry to the festival. I think that it's something that is going to grow and grow. I have big hopes for where it can go in with documentary. I don't think you're going to get the fully realized version in year one, but it's very exciting that we get to do this.
Maybe pitch forums in the future?
Quite possibly, I think we will, be trying to take the pulse of what people want, and whether it's one-on-one meetings or pitch forums or whatever, and try to uh, 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 meet those needs.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier have seen you see about 200 films that you've by either filmmakers, producers, you have relationships with someone associated with the film. Is saying no to them, the 200 emails you have to write, is that the hardest part of your job?
Yeah, probably. Um, I mean, no one likes disappointing anyone, but I think it's an important part of the job. I mean, when I was a filmmaker, my sales agent was Jan Rofkamp with Films Transit, and he used to say, "No is the second best answer you can get." Um, and I definitely experienced that as a filmmaker because I spent a lot of time, in limbo, like waiting. And I found that there were people in those jobs of making decisions who um, who were non-confrontational and didn't want to deliver the no. So they put it off, or they would do it in the most sideways way possible. And from that experience, I've really felt that saying no is actually 90% of the process of selection. I mean, there's a lot of different other aspects to this job, but in the selection part of the process, 90 no saying no is 9%. So you've got to take that um, as seriously as saying yes.
Yeah. I sometimes say the only benefit of having a track record of success in documentaries is I get to hear no
You get the
sooner.
no faster.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get, before we open this up for questions, which we'll do very, very soon, I want to touch on the bigger picture, which is, I mean, seeing so many films, do you get a sense of what trends are out there, what kinds of films are getting made, and what does it say to you about where things are at in this state of documentary?
Well, and listen, we've all absorbed a lot of disappointments and pieces of bad news in the last 4 to 5 years about uh, you know company like participant closing, or streamer pulling back from documentaries. There's, in the last 15 years, we saw this big rise of new people, new distribution financing coming in, and in the last 5 years, we've seen a depressing retreat. So I don't have to tell anyone on this call that things are tighter and more challenging. But I do want to kind of reflect that it's not all um, super bleak. In this upcoming fall, you've got Disney is going to release Everest the Other Side to in a kind of major theatrical release, including IMAX theaters. Bleecker Street distributor is going to release a nearly 4 hour version of Alex Gibney's Elon Musk documentary, Musk. Neon is going to release, a film that was shot nearly 50 years ago, Once Upon a Time in Harlem, by William Greaves. Mubi is releasing Noose and Spare, prize winner at Sundance this year. This summer, in art house theaters, the Mary Oliver, Saved by the Beauty of the World, that Kino released, has played in over 100 theaters. I forget what the latest box office number for was, but
There's American Doctors coming out, just opened. Wild
American
Side is
Doctor
doing
just
great.
exactly.
Yeah.
These are not uh, you know uh, Spider-Man numbers, but for the current state of theatrical documentaries, like excuse me, there are some signs of things getting better. I think of the film Secret Mall Apartment that made over $500,000, made I think nearly $1 million at the box office in a self-release. Um, so the Netflix, HBO, these are still, very active platforms, buying films. Um, and, so if you want to pick a peak moment to compare to, no, it's not that. But there are films um, that are getting made and reaching audiences and having a big impact.
Yeah. We are ready very soon to take your questions. So time for people to put hands up if they want to ask a question of Tom. So that was encouraging, but you're still really only talking about a handful of films. If
Yes,
you were, yeah, I mean, so given that there's been contractions, funding sources have dried up, and but would you say distribution opportunities are still there? I mean,
I think
you're,
I think there is a lot to explore with distribution still. Another thing that makes me very hopeful and um, also makes me feel competitive and frustrated. Last December, if anyone who's on Instagram may have noticed this feed called Docs to Watch. It's a guy in England. He posts a trailer from a documentary every day, and writes a few words about it. And from December till now, he's accumulated 600,000 followers. I mean, that to me is as sure a sign as anything that that there are audiences out there who are what I don't think that we have, you know, and when I said it made me frustrated, makes me frustrated because I've been doing my pure nonfiction podcast for 10 years and have not yet cracked that thing that suddenly blew him up into 600,000 followers. So all respect to him, and it gets my competitive juices flowing to figure out what more I can be doing to widen the audience for the films that I'm trying to champion. Um,
Suggestions in the chat, folks. Um, yeah, we,
what'd you say there?
I was asking for suggestions
Mm.
in the chat to be put in the chat. But
Yeah,
it's true. I mean, we're, our D-Word YouTube channel, we get a few thousand eyeballs, maybe a couple
yeah,
hundred, maybe, and I always wonder what makes something pop like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
What are we doing?
and
What are we
I
doing
give
wrong,
I
Tom?
give him as an example because I don't think he's dumbing down the content, or I don't think
Mhm.
he's he's not like promoting true crime documentaries that have their own lane. Yeah, he's touting the kinds of documentaries that I think are widely celebrated in the D-word community, and that are uh, the similar pool of documentaries that I try to celebrate on pure nonfiction and my programming. So, I think that, look, let's talk about the word D-word. When this site was created, the whole idea was that documentary was a word that was a kind of stigma, um,
Yeah.
that held people back. Now when you sit down on an airlines flight and comb through the viewing options, documentary is a category, and there's a reason it's a category, is because they know that people want to watch that stuff. And if you walk through an airplane and kind of see what people are watching, you'll spot a lot of different documentary viewing experiences going on there. So the the audience is there. um, I think that we have a challenge system for reaching that audience. Um, Art house movie going, which for many of us is, are probably our favorite way of experiencing a film, is always going to be an extra challenge. You got to get people out of the house and cover their babysitting fees, or whatever it takes to that make that a more deliberate experience. So that has its own challenges. The streaming platforms, are doing what they're doing, and it's it hasn't been that welcoming to the great mass of documentary film. Um, but when I look at specialty channels like Criterion or Mubi, or a brand like A24, which sadly kind of never found their groove with documentary, and briefly had a documentary division they closed, and that's fine. They're doing very successful work in other aspects of cinema. But when I look at the kind of um, loyalty that those companies have formed with film goers, including young film goers. I meet a lot of like teenagers who, when I ask them what films they like, they'll say A24 films. Um, and which uh, makes sense to me. But like when I was a teenager, I liked Marvel comics, and more than I like DC comics. So you make an association um, with a with a in a way, those companies are curators. They're curating a collection of stuff. So when you feel connected to curation, um, then that creates a certain kind of loyalty. So I think we are in a transition moment um, between the time when we were, kind of being overly optimistic and reliant on streamer platforms, and for a while that was, serving a bunch of us in the documentary community. And now we've kind of woke up to the reality that they aren't serving us in the way that we hoped they would. At least not on the scale of which documentary production is taking place. They still do a wonderful job with the films that they take on. Um, but now that we've accepted that that's not where we can lay all our hopes. Now we have to figure out what the new systems can be, and yeah, I don't think those exist yet, but I feel a lot of optimism that smart people are putting good energy into that, and we're going to get there.
Great. Good. Okay, well, it is time for us to go to questions. Lev, you've been waiting patiently. You're up first.
Hi, thank you for letting me ask the questions. Uh, I'm a first-time filmmaker, and I'm presenting a historic documentary. Will an endorsement from a celebrity make any difference, delivered either in the form of the direct letter to you or joining the project as an executive producer? Will it make any difference in your decision about the film?
It doesn't hurt. I mean, I'm thinking right now of at least two or three letters I got from actors who I greatly admire, recommending a documentary to me this year, and the couple I'm thinking of the projects weren't right for TIFF, but they, I definitely took them seriously, and because I take them seriously because I know the that if someone is going to be putting their energy behind touting a film, then that has potential to help it connect to an audience, which is meaningful to me. So it's not everything, but it doesn't hurt at all. Whether it's with a festival or whether it's when you put up your website and sell the film there, to have a endorsement of someone that people admire, either because they're an actor, a musician, or a sports figure, or a politician. Um, as a the challenge of being a first-time filmmaker is that you don't have any points of recognition, and in our in our um, crowded landscape of things trying to grab our attention, all of us, rightly or wrongly, are like looking for points of recognition. So use anything you can to grab a point of recognition.
Yeah. Lev, it may not help, but you'll get to hear no sooner.
Yeah.
Sheila, can you come up on camera?
She's
I would like to, hi, I
she's
would
having
like
a
to,
problem with her camera, but she'll just ask her question from where she
Okay.
is
yeah,
there.
I
Sure.
apologize for that. Tom, thank you for coming and for this information. And I'm wondering, in your submissions for this year, did you receive any AI hybrid documentaries? And by that, I mean AI generated dramatic recreations and archival, for example.
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that. When I was doing interviews a couple weeks ago, press interviews with trade papers, Variety, Hollywood Reporter. That was the number one question I got, and I hadn't even really thought that much about it. So I appreciate it's something on people's minds, but I would, and this could be the kind of thing that where a year will make a difference. Like maybe next year will be the tipping point when I'll be dealing with a massive amount of
We'll
this.
help you back for your fourth appearance, Tom.
Yes, exactly. Or you'll have my AI avatar
Right.
back for.
Sure.
But the answer is no. It was not a big thing. I saw one project that was created out of AI, and deliberately so. It was kind of presenting itself that way, and I watched the first in watching the first 2 minutes. I thought like, oh wow, this is like really cool imagery. And then after 5 minutes, I just thought like, oh, I like this is really hard to take. Like I can't feel situated in this. I mean, I think a big thing about documentary film is feeling a sense of authenticity about it, and people have achieved that using lots of different techniques. I think of a film like Flea, made with animation, that that I think holds you with a sense of authenticity because of the voices in the film, and somehow in its artistry, allows many viewers to accept this animated construct, and I wouldn't close the door on the possibility that someone is going to be able to pull that off eventually with AI. But I understand the question. The answer is that it wasn't really a big issue in 2026.
Lev, I see your hand up again. Now you assume you have another question, so I'll let people who haven't asked a question yet go first, and we'll get to you. Joanne.
Yeah, hi, Tom. Good to have you here again. My question is, my film has been accepted in a film festival for September, but it's only going to be shown virtually. It won't be shown in the theater of the festival. And my question is, why should I go to the festival if I don't know who's ever going to see my film? And how do I find out how many people actually see my film?
Well, I think those are valid questions to ask, and it's hard to answer that question abstractly. I think have to ask yourself, like, what are your wants? Like if I could see a positive situation for that, in that if that festival has the means to reach an audience that you wouldn't have the means to reach if you put it up yourself, because of course you could put it up yourself virtually, and be able to track all the information about who watches, but you may not be able to promote it in the same way that a festival does. So, if you think that the festival has a means to promote it in a different way, well, then that could be a good experience. If in your heart of hearts, like the whole point of going to a festival is to watch it in a theater with other human beings, then this might not be the right experience for you. For the question of of being able to understand who's watching it, I definitely don't think it's too much to ask a festival to say how many people tuned in. I can understand why it might be too far an ask to say, like, can I get their email addresses, because that's a whole set of privacy and permissions that so if I signed up to watch a film, at a festival and I gave them my email, I might not want my email shared with third parties. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a conversation to have.
Great. Thanks, Joanne. Celine.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for all of this. So, just as a true crime filmmaker, and I am creating the anti true crime doc, I feel like there is a lot of, I don't want to say animosity, but there's like hesitation around like true crime docs just in general. But with that being said, do you feel like, especially now with docs to watch and how big their social media has become, do you think that's going to start being part of the landscape, like when programmers are looking at projects, like the through line of having that social media following or anything like that that could help amplify
blur back
such a, you
done.
know,
But wait, now,
that like I
now.
said, that little side of, oh, I think someone's talking.
Yeah, Ken, I think,
me?
can you mute yourself? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I get the gist, Celine, of your question. Is like, how much does online profile matter? Listen, I think it matters throughout many industries. I have a friend who's a top book editor, and I know when they're looking at book proposals. They're looking at, does this author have a social media following? Might not be the only criteria that they use, but it certainly excites everyone. When someone does. The I've read articles that in Hollywood casting these days, if they're like stuck between two actors for a role, and one has a high social media following, they'll go with that. So for in my festival programming personally, I don't look at that. In fact, the one time I did, I and this goes back many years. This is kind of like pre-social media, but there was a film that the film I was promised that the filmmaker had a humongous YouTube following, and they did have a humongous YouTube following, and um, and I was and I I I let that enter my decision, and I wish I hadn't let that enter my decision.
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a good question. Ken, you can now unmute and we'll take your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're
Yes.
good.
Because I wasn't on mute, so I was surprised. But anyhow, hi, nice to meet you. I have 3 points to one question, and it's in regard to premiere status. Because there are so many festivals out there, and we're jockeying to try and get into one festival versus another, and we just have to let it fall where it
Totally.
falls. So how critical is that, number one? Secondly, is the number of festivals that we have already appeared in prior to yours affect how well it's received in terms of programming? And lastly,
Ken, can we leave it there? Because three questions, like
they're all related.
Okay.
They're really, honestly, they're three facets of the same
Okay.
question. So, and then lastly, does having a sneak preview screening prior affect the status
Yeah.
of the
They're all good questions. I bet there's a lot of people who have similar questions. So, premier status matters to a certain tier of festivals. A festival like Sundance, Toronto, South by Southwest, festival. The major festivals that if ask your cool cousin if they've heard of this festival, and they have, then premier status probably matters. And you um, and I think it's one of the kind of toughest things for a filmmaker to figure out when they're taking their film onto the festival circuit is inevitably you're going to um,
Jeremy's doing
get more attention from smaller festivals that are super eager. It could be your hometown festival, for instance, who definitely is eager to celebrate your film because you're a hometown filmmaker, and you're not sure whether to go with them or to hold out for the bigger festival. I mean, at some point, I think like you go where the love is. You make your best effort to try for the bigger festival, and if they're not answering your email, if you've sent them an email saying like, hey, I'd love to premiere there, but I have an offer here, and you don't get any answer, well, then that probably is an answer. If they're not, if they're not pumped up enough about your film to get back to you, then that is the answer. So I would say go where the love is. Um, Sneak previews. Basically, if you've shown a film in a totally private way, and when I Google it, I don't know that exists, then that's fine. But if you've had but if I Google your film and it says like it played in a theater, um, and we sold tickets to it, then you can call it whatever you want, but that means your film is as shown in public. So that's the rule of thumb that I would use there. And then in terms of how many festivals a film has played before, I mean, for me at Toronto, I don't want to play at any festivals before, because we pride ourselves on launching films for the first time. Now we do, my main priority in selecting a film, a festival lineup, is to have as many world premieres as possible. There's certain films that will show as a North American premiere. But it's really my goal to keep those to as small a number as possible.
Tom, does your rule of thumb apply to virtual screenings, particularly if you're doing kind of a fundraising screening towards the end, maybe even to get completion funds?
I mean, I think I would call that if you're doing that, I would call it a rough cut screening. Yeah, if I mean, it just has to pass like a common sense test. Like, has this film actually had a public premiere already, no matter what you called it, or has it not? Um, and uh, and you know and the kind of first test of that is the Google test. Like, if I Google this film, does it look like it's already out in the world?
Right. Okay.
If I Google the film and I see it had a rough cut screening, it did a D-Word rough cut screening for feedback, but, that doesn't worry me. I don't, that's not doesn't look or smell like a premiere.
Right. Nicholas.
Ooh. Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us again. I had a question regarding political documentaries or things that, for instance, like in the US, things that might be critical of the current administration. And being an international festival, something that I've kind of run into with my film is that sort of I've heard through the grapevine the top-down mandate from streamers and various buyers that if it rocks the cradle too much, if it's too critical, then it's not a safe thing to program or to buy. But when it comes to international markets, say out in Europe, they are interested in showing US political related documentaries. Are those conversations or conversations like that also affect how you program at TIFF, given that it's nearby, or is this?
I mean, I think festival and commercial distribution are two different tracks for these things. And I mean, listen, we're showing a documentary by Alex Gibney about Elon Musk this year, which, by the way, is getting distributed by Bleecker Street and HBO. So the uh, you know, I think the idea that corporations are kind of stepping away from politics is not a false one. I think we can all see that with our own eyes. Um, but I also think it's false that that it's a total closed door, and when in fact I know lots of people fighting the good fight in major organizations to try to make space for different political films. There's some topics are going to be more hot potato than others, and but if you're asking at a festival level, um, I think the festivals remain a healthy space where the ethos is more to run towards controversy than run away from it. Are there going to be exceptions that where people feel like what this I'm not ready to take this on? Sure, but I think we're I feel encouraged by the film festival space and its ability to accommodate lots of different viewpoints.
Thom, was Musk an example of a film where you heard it was in the works and you actively, went to Alex Gibney and said,
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, the film has been in the works for nearly 4 years, and on an annual basis, I would check in with Alex and ask him about the status. And I um, believe that it was nearly completed near the end of 2024, and then when Musk entered the Trump administration and started Doge, I think Alex and his team, realized that we need to keep this story going.
yeah, no worries about legal actions or getting it pulled at the last minute?
Look, I mean, like we always take as much healthy cautions as we can. I think the only time I've had a film pulled over legal actions because Aretha Franklin convinced a judge in Colorado to put a block on a documentary about her, but. Um, Otherwise, I've and that was in Colorado, which had a fortunately ripple effect on the film plane in Toronto.
Thom, do you have a few more moments?
Sure.
Okay. But we're not going to take any more questions, folks, just Art and Lev. So Art, why don't you come on? You are on camera. Yes, ask away.
Good afternoon, Thom. I wanted to ask, as you are focused on pure nonfiction, what role would a docudrama play in being considered by TIFF?
I mean, if by docudrama you mean a film that's like based on a true story with actors, that's really considered by our fiction team.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just needed to get clarity on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Art. And Lev, take us home with your final question.
Okay, well, this is not a question, this is a pre-question. Can Thom read private messages in the chat?
No. No.
No. Okay, well, what I wanted to ask you then, I did not want to do it publicly. I have a bit of dispute with my team about the title for the film.
Let's hear it. Let's settle this now.
Okay, so number 1, Notes in Exile, Discovering Carol Rathouse. Number 2, Notes of Exile, In the Footsteps of Carol Rathouse. Number 3, The Last Exile of Carol Rathouse. Number 4, A Journey with No Return, In the Footsteps of Karl Rathaus. And number 5, A Journey with No Return, The Last Exile of Karl Rathaus.
Well, I will say, I don't love films with titles with colons in them, with subtitles. Like it feels like an academic paper to me more. I mean, I've shown them some before, but you know, I personally would encourage going for something that doesn't have to be explained in a subtitle. Now, that may not be possible. And I think that I think all of those are kind of hitting the exile part, and then getting you know getting the name of your figure in there, I think is maybe less important because it's not a figure that I've heard of. Maybe there are many people who have heard of this figure and would gravitate to it for that reason. But yeah, sometimes I feel like I can really nail a title, and I have strong opinions about titles. I think you've got a range there, and you keep on working on it with your team.
As Erica says in the chat, clean out your colons.
Yeah, exactly.
So thanks, Tom. Any last words? Anything we didn't cover that you want to say before we?
No, I mean this is the 10th anniversary of the Pure Nonfiction podcast. So if people haven't heard enough from me, there are nearly 250 episodes of interviews with filmmakers that you can listen to on Apple or Spotify or purenonfiction.net. If you want to get a sense of the films that I've programmed over the last 20 years, my book Mondo documentary, you can order off of purenonfiction.net that collects my writings from TIFF from the last 20 years. And I want to express my appreciation to Doug and Erica and the whole D-Word team. I've been part of this community for nearly since its beginning, and wherever I am in the world, I'm recommending that people join it. So it's it feels like a homecoming to me every time I get to be here.